It's been a while since we featured a new ambassador to the Philippines here at Embassy Row. This week we have with us Her Excellency Australian Ambassador Amanda Gorely, who will talk about her life before and during her foreign service career with the Australian government. Good evening to you, Madam Ambassador, and welcome to our program, Business and Leisure.
Good evening, Butch. It's great to be here.
This segment of Business and Leisure is called Embassy Row, where our viewers get to know the persona behind the official title. With your kind permission, please allow us to go back a few years to when you spent your childhood. What was your childhood like? Did you spend it in Australia?
Actually, I was born in the United Kingdom and my parents migrated to Australia when I was 4 years old. It's a very common story in Australia. We have a large migrant population. My family became Australian citizens and I basically grew up in Melbourne. That's where I went to school and university, and that's where my family still lives in Australia.
Oh, I see. Now, what about your education and what were your interests then? I would like to know if your interests influenced your career decisions in adulthood, or is it possible that somewhere along the way you faced a crossroad in deciding which career path to pursue?
Well, when I was at high school, I didn't really have a very strong ambition to be any particular profession, but then I got reasonably good marks in my high school assessments, and I managed to get into a law course at the University of Melbourne. So I pursued law, and after I finished and graduated, I worked for a law firm for a couple of years. But I'd always had an interest in international law, and I participated in a competition, on international law competition. And when I saw the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade was advertising for lawyers, I saw that as a way to get into the diplomatic role that I am in today. So I started off as a lawyer in the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and I was working on a whole lot of international issues, UN negotiations on fisheries and law of the sea. And then I went on my first overseas posting, which was to Scandinavia, to Stockholm. And then I've worked back in Canberra in various largely legal roles, and I've done 2 other postings as well, to the United Nations in Geneva and to New Zealand as our Deputy High Commissioner there, and then I came here.
Okay, let's go now to your diplomatic career. When were you officially sworn in as Ambassador of Australia to the Philippines, and can you tell us your first impressions of the country?
Well, I arrived here in January this year, Butch, and I'd been to the Philippines, to Manila, twice before, so it wasn't a complete unknown for me, although I'd only visited for short periods of time. But my first impressions when I started this job was just how broad and deep our relationship is with the Philippines. It literally covers the whole spectrum of activity, and it's a very interesting job that I have here.
That indeed is good to hear. Now, can we talk now about how we have enhanced our trade relations in the last 2 or 3 years with Australia, for instance?
Yeah, sure. Butch, Australia's trade with the Philippines has really been increasing consistently over the last 5 years or so. It's probably gone up, it's almost doubled in that time. So now it's worth about $4.2 billion. And we're seeing a continuous increase in the numbers of Australian companies who are coming here, for instance, to set up BPO operations. We also have a diverse range of Australian products which are sold into the Philippines market, particularly in areas like food and beverages. If you go to a supermarket here, you'll see lots of Australian meat and fruit and vegetables and that sort of thing. Education is a big area of increase for us. There's a lot of Filipino students going to Australia to take advantage of our excellent universities there, and they're studying a whole range of different courses. So it's a very dynamic and exciting time in the trade relationship.
That is also good to hear, Madam Ambassador. Now, there are two things that Filipinos value most, and these are education and sports. On education, are there exchange or scholarship programs between our two countries, and what about sports programs?
Sure. I mean, on the education front, we do run a scholarship program called the Australia Awards, and they're very prestigious scholarships. I was at a graduation ceremony yesterday for 30 Australia Awards graduates who are doing this really new model of learning. So they do part of their course here at De La Salle University, and then they do part of their course in Australia at the University of Newcastle, and they get one diploma and one master's qualification from that. So they were 30 students, and there are a whole lot of others at other Australian universities as well. On the sporting front, again, there's a lot of mutual interests, and we had some good news recently. You might have heard of the Australian rules football, which is a different type of football to that which is played in other parts of the world. Anyway, there's a Philippines team called the Philippines Eagles, and they won the Asian Cup last weekend. So that's a very positive thing. But we're also very much into promoting the idea of sport as a way to good health and nutrition as well, and we do provide small grants to sporting organisations here to enable them to purchase equipment or provide that sort of inspirational thing for young children as well.
Thank you for that again, Madam Ambassador, but with all due respect, we shall take a very short break. We shall be right back.